thought I got it fixed good enough.
Somewhere I have a
What then?
meter that shows which direction the flow of juice.
This is going. I always wanted to get one of them, when you clip around the wire.
And, oh, this one actually just sits, it's a little gauge to show you which
Oh, is
direction.
that right?
I don't know for sure where it's at.
I've always wanted to get one of those clip-on meters so I could try and find where, like Mark and Sam's truck. Well, I know what it is. There's gotta be a bad battery in it that drags the rest of them down. They charge up fine and it runs fine that day, and then once you let it set for 2 days, it won't start. It's got a bad.
We
one
used
of-
to have a vehicle like that, we'd have to unhook the batteries.
Well, and this
Hook
thing's
them back up when you wanna use
got a
it.
switch on it where you can shut the power away from the truck.
Yeah.
But the batteries themselves are still wired together. So it's gotta be one of them batteries dragging it down. Yep, it's time for that, not mechanic.
You gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the agenda.
I'll second that.
Yeah, motion from Gensfold and a second from Smith to approve the minutes and agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. Motion carries. Discussion with possible action regarding COVID-19 policies. Julie, are you on the phone?
She is.
Yes, I am. How are you guys?
Her
Good,
pickup
thanks.
always sounds the same.
Thanks. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Bill?
Well, it's bad that I know that you're listening, so if you're trying to sneak in, you're not gonna get away with it.
I know. That's because they asking who's on.
What do you have?
So,
for us?
in the last 7 days, we're down to 10%. We've been at 11, and now we've dropped 1%. So, yay. And I looked at the vaccinating, and we have gone up to 46.8%. So that's a little bit more than a couple weeks ago. I think we were at 43, I believe, a couple weeks ago. Statewide, we're at 54%. The last 7 days, I've had 54 positive cases in our county. As far as the hospitals, they have had, in our region, 2 extra COVID cases. There's 45 hospitalized, and out of those 45, 15 were fully vaccinated, and the ones in ICU, 4 are fully vaccinated. So, and we're still offering a COVID vaccine clinic on Thursday from 1 to 4. We have the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson. And then also we have our flu clinics Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays from 1 to 4. And you have to call for the flu clinic by appointment only. So I don't have everyone waiting out in the office, out in the entryway.
Do you need to call for the COVID vaccine or just show up?
Not for the COVID because I can place them sporadically throughout the building to wait that 15 minutes.
Sure.
Anything else?
That is all I have at this moment.
Any questions from us?
No questions?
All right, thanks, Julie.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you.
Consider for approval, cost allocation plan certification.
Morning.
Morning, Robert.
Is this something we do every year?
Yes, you do that every year.
For some reason, I don't remember this. That does not need to be stamped, does it?
No.
Can you explain it to me, or do I just?
So I emailed that to you. What it is we pay for things through the courthouse. So we pay for maintenance, we pay for, I don't know, we paid for the roof, we pay for all different sorts of things. And then we allocate a certain percentage of that cost to mental health. And this is what this plan does that. It allocates a certain percentage of all the things that we pay back to a percentage of mental health.
So when we repaired our roof, then mental health benefited.
Mental health helps pay for a piece of,
Oh, they will pay for it because they utilize space
in the building.
in the building. Oh, I see.
Oh,
So their cost went up a little bit because of that.
Yeah,
and then it's a federal thing then?
no, it's a,
Yeah, that's right, because when we started this whole thing, we were trying to get CSS to pay for some of it. Remember, right? We upped their rent on their corner of the road.
if you have more questions, I can have the guys that do this call you next week. If
Sure.
you want
Last
to
year,
talk
a
to
year
them.
ago, we questioned why we have to do it, and it has to do with mostly the mental health and the way things work there.
I've had them come in several times over the years and talk to you guys.
It wasn't.
So it's to keep the federal awards, the monies that are awarded us federally in check?
I don't know. I would have to have them call you.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure that there's federal monies.
No.
It's not federal. I'll have them call you.
Sure.
But the report shows how the money was spent, split out.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
get the email last week?
I don't remember that.
I saw it,
I sent it to you all
Okay,
separately.
yeah, and it was the title, I think,
It
had
said,
cost allocation.
yep, it said cost allocation.
Oh.
And I emailed it to you all
I'll
separately.
look again.
Okay.
But is it just this anyway, or?
No,
does
No,
it's the report.
there's several reports in
Oh,
there.
then I'll go and look again. I'm
Yep.
sorry. If it was there, I did not read it.
I read through it. I'll make a motion to approve the cost allocation plan certification.
I'll second it.
On a motion from Derby and a second from Jensvold to approve the cost allocation plan certification. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay, consider for approval memorandum of agreement with RSVP.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum.
I'll second it.
We got a motion from Smith and a second from Jensvold to approve the memorandum of agreement with RSVP. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
thought I saw his pickup out there.
Yeah, I'll call back. Says the office, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess put Chris in here. Hi, Chris. You want to come and talk about drainage? All right, thanks.
Does this get stamped received?
Approved.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, we approve it. That's, be right.
I took a trip up to the north side of the cities the other day. Went up 35W, congested during rush hour, so I took 35E on the way back. Good thing, because we had a shooting right along that 35W
Oh, no kidding.
downtown. Like, they had traffic blocked off while I'm going through St. Paul.
Oh,
Good. Yeah.
And then this weekend, Saturday night, they had the shooting in St. Paul. So.
Hey,
terrible.
you must all that clean living's paying off for you.
Yes.
You get the life.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good.
Good.
Do you have anything on drainage?
I do not. I don't want to say it's been quiet, because then maybe it won't be, but,
No,
How's
I,
your,
I had one farmer call me with a blowout.
oh, okay.
Said he could fit his combine into it. So
Ooh, that's not a good deal.
I told him, you're having trouble with that combine. It'd be a good way to get a new one.
we've had that before.
It's not good.
Something you could drop a whole car into. And the
Yeah.
combine wouldn't like that.
Mm-mm.
So how's your switch over with your software and?
I think it's going okay so far. I print checks today, so that'll be my first claim process. Drainage is not fully up yet. They are going to, I called in $900,000 last week, and that should pay this Friday. We may not get that until the next week, but they can make sure the date is right, because I wanted landowners to not have to pay more interest than they had to. So I wanted to call them in early, knowing that they could backdate it at their end. So, I think it's going okay. Until I actually get to using it all the time,
Yeah.
like I was before. I'll see, but
Are you getting enough help or training from them as well?
you know, we've all been talking about our training. It's good and it's bad. If you understand what's happening, you can see why there's problems. But yet, like Chelsea, she has to pay payroll this week, and there's a lot of things that weren't ready. I don't know how you get them ready ahead of time unless you're using it, but yet some of those systems, wouldn't they have checked already, knowing that she has to have it this week? Those are things that I don't understand, but I am not a programmer. So I don't know what.
Yeah. It's hard to know if it
issue
was
is.
really, if it's just impossible and this is the way it has to be,
Right,
or if there was something they could have done to.
right.
To make
So
it
those
better.
questions I don't know. But
Yep.
You know, because there was a lot of times when I was on the phone last week. Well, we have to check this, you know, we'll come back and meet in an hour. They'd have to check this. So I haven't done a claim process all the way through yet, but I feel like the steps are pretty
So it hasn't
simple.
really affected any of your customers or you walk in or?
We don't have that many, no.
Yeah, it's
No.
not.
Because drainage was over as far as if people wanted to set up a payment plan by the time we went to this. So I didn't have to worry about that. I was all done. So. And that would be my only customers.
The timing of it all is kind of poor too. With
And that's-
taxes coming in and all that stuff.
You know, and that's the way it
That was-
evidently.
That was the choice though of,
Right,
I didn't want to do it at this time, and that was the choice of the treasurer and everybody else. So that was their decision to do it this time. So,
and then even though when they got more into it, nobody wanted it at this time, but then they couldn't change it. So. It's all working, it'll just be what it is.
I didn't want it at this time because my grandson was due on October 3rd.
Well,
So I didn't want it at this time, and I was told that this was the best time for everybody, and
And then they couldn't go later because then you're into W-2s and everything else and semi-annual report and annual reports and you have to do it at some point.
Yeah.
So,
It's gonna be inconvenient no matter what.
right.
starting right now would have been about the time. Seems to me.
But
Anyway,
we've been doing this for, what, a week? And training for a month before. So,
it's kind of like road construction. Hopefully it'll all be really nice when it's done.
right. I think it
But
will.
right now it's a headache.
Those orange barrels are driving you.
You ever heard that
I think
Orange
it'll
Barrel
be-
song? Yeah.
I think, you have to look at things positive, and I think that it's gonna be a good system. I think we have to keep our heads
Well, you like to
positive.
believe that they've made progress in their programming over years.
Yes.
And Julie and I talk a lot, and I feel like, and we just talked this morning, I had good training from Carla to understand what it is I was doing with drainage, how it was working. So I feel like I have a good knowledge of how it's supposed to work in the system. Julie knows her side of it, so we talk a lot, and our communication is really good in how it's all working. Maybe some other counties don't have that, and that's their issue. I can't speak for other counties, but maybe they don't understand it as well, and not a slam to them. Just, maybe they just don't know it.
There are some people that just don't like to get along with each other.
And that may be too. So I feel like we're lucky that way, that we have all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Communication is a wonderful thing.
Anything else for drainage?
Yeah, we kind of.
As long as we were talking about drainage in there,
Yeah, right?
I was watching closely.
You know, we kind of got away from drainage stuff still. Yeah, well, it involved drainage.
I know it. So we didn't have any concerns. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thanks.
Call Scott again.
It's a good thing my grandson came a month early.
Yeah, there you go.
He's so cute in the picture. Oh my gosh, he's cute. What's his middle name?
Wesley Dillon.
Dylan.
Open forum.
After Matt Dillon.
Spell it with an I or a Y or a Dylan?
DY.
Oh, that's wrong.
Not even much for open forum today.
else is on the conservation board other than Julie Higginson and Mike Korth,
Nancy and Helm.
Al?
Tim Missile.
So it's when they get to be 1 year old, then they can drive the tractors, or at least it's county help.
Well, that's a better picture than him playing in the toilet the other day.
Oh, sure.
That's really cute.
So he is, instead of grabbing levers and buttons in the tractor, he thought it was best to let him drive, except he decided to lay on the steering wheel.
Oh, yeah.
He's driving this way.
Kind of looks like he's on the front
Oh,
of the tight
yeah. I've had,
King of the farm.
I've had my kids and my nephews and stuff when they were in the tractor or whatever with me and they're, yeah, it's the way they.
You stamped the quarterly report. You didn't vote on it though.
Yeah, I know, we're getting there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're done with the open forum then? All right, we'll consider for approval the sheriff's quarterly report. Everybody had a chance to review it.
I'll make the motion to approve the sheriff's quarterly report.
I'll second it.
A motion from Smith and a second from Jensvold to approve the sheriff's quarterly report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Consider for approval semi-monthly county claims. It took me a little bit to get used to the report, being used to the old one, you know, and scrolling through.
I was trying. It's such a change.
Things are gonna look different on there.
Had to focus more.
Actually, I thought it read better than the other.
Easier to read, yeah.
Easier than the other ones, so.
It was more on my end, just getting used to it.
Yeah, well, no, yeah,
Anytime
I had to
they change
adjust to
anything.
the, I'm like, oh, look at that. Well, there was a warning on the message. It said that it's a different, what's the word?
So my
Format?
brain, when my brain read that instantly went into, you know, oh.
Did it go into the,
Panic mode.
I'm an old dog,
Yeah.
don't do tricks?
I gotta see if I miss anything here.
This is how the new report will look. That's what it said, so it's, I'm like, I went into it going, oh no, oh no.
Mhm.
Yep, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the semi-monthly county claims.
I'll make the motion to approve the semi-monthly county claims.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Jensvold, a second from Smith to approve the semi-monthly county claims. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Do we have any payroll claims to work on? While we're
We have
waiting?
not seen anything.
No,
I've been sitting over here with a stamp or
I
chomping
don't
at
know
the
if
bit.
I was gonna say, it's that new program.
Engineers paywall and
Yeah, well, if he ain't gonna show up, they ain't gonna get paid, right?
6 minutes before the, Robert.
You do get payroll.
Oh, look at that. Ooh, I don't know. We don't have a stamper for denied. I can't believe that you actually had all these boxes.
You like to look at my calendar?
Scott or Becky.
I can text him.
Payroll and if he has anything for his report. I wonder if there's a fire drill down there.
Mhm. Becky?
Hello? Yeah, we were wondering if anybody was in the office down there. Okay, is Scott around? Okay, and then do you have payroll or? Oh, okay. Well, if you could, because we're running a little ahead of schedule, and you can come back. Okay, thanks.
What
Bye.
did Julie say with the?
I wish this thing would move back a little more, because it
Nothing other
doesn't
than
really
we're down
hang
a
up.
percent.
Yeah.
I see Mason City
There's
went
an
over
adjustment
7,
on
so
the
they
back
have to
of that
mask
we
up
did.
at the high school.
It's called a saw. Just cut the legs off.
Get the legs off.
The thing doesn't always hang up. It kind
Oh,
of needs to be like this more.
hmm.
Yeah, she's on a webinar and her payroll she hasn't entered into Tyler, so she's gonna let us have it first. And then,
I guess that's what you're doing with them, is approving them before we enter it.
I
Yep,
just,
we'll need it back, I guess.
Yep.
soon.
As long as they enter the same thing we approve.
Don't make any changes.
Yeah, yeah.
Grandchild, is it grandson?
Mm-hmm, good.
Maybe a full month early?
Yeah, it was a full month early.
Well, it's a little bit of a rocky start.
Yeah,
Did he stay in very long, or did they?
just a full week. They're
How
good.
much did he weigh again?
He was 4'11" or something. And then,
My daughter, Sierra, she was 4 when she was born, and then she lost a little bit. She was only 3 something. Remember, her head is here, and her feet were like here. She was so tiny when you hold her.
My niece was, went under 2. I don't remember how many months she was in the hospital, but I don't know if you know Sable Schwartz up there in Lake Mills. That's my niece.
Oh, yeah.
She was tiny.
Was that the last child she had?
No, she was.
Oh, she was.
Sable was
Oh, she was.
2 pounds.
Oh,
Yeah, no, she has 2 daughters.
yeah. Cute,
Yeah,
really
kids,
cute.
yeah. Yeah, Sable.
So how is
Sorry.
she your, how's she name?
My brother, Scott.
Brother? Got it. Okay.
I'm pretty biased. I do think
Yeah, oh yeah. Looks like he's smiling.
yeah.
So it's 9:30. Discuss Nature Center project. Robert, what do you have?
Yeah, well, we've been talking a little bit, during the our ARPA committee meetings, we were talking about, projects that might be considered for funding. And the Conservation Board had a meeting yesterday morning. First, they wanted me to update them on where we were at, and I told them nothing has been decided, and there's really no timetable for that. We've also been talking with our architect about the next bid letting kind of window, and now is kind of that time frame, November, December, and it's getting kind of close to he said if we were to rebid it, they would get the bid package put together, and if there were no major changes, there'd be a turnaround time. We'd probably get them out in November to the contractors, back the first part of December with a very short window of opportunity to accept or deny the bids. And as I've kind of mentioned to you guys before, COVID had a real impact on our material labor costs, and it inflated the cost from about 1.4 million is where it should have come in at, somewhere in that ballpark, to just over 1.9 million is the low bid, 1.935 I think it was. And I know there was some conversation at our ARPA, American Recovery Plan meeting, about maybe using some TIF money for a project. And if this board would consider TIF funding, or was going to consider TIF funding versus ARPA funding for our project, it wouldn't be something that would have to take place now. We won't need the money until sometime probably after July 1st, but it would enable us to go forward with the bid letting, knowing that that funding would potentially be there, and we can continue to raise money. We'll do that anyway. We're going to need funding for furnishings and different things like that anyway. But my board wanted me to come in and talk to you guys about that possibility of maybe going the TIF route on top of what you've already committed in TIF funds. And again, none of those funds that process hasn't started yet, other than you approved it at a meeting last.
Well, we put it in our budget as such, where we have to let you use the money, then the next year we borrowed from ourselves to do that, and then we get reimbursed from TIF funds the next year.
And if we did let the bids this December and they were approved, the project wouldn't start probably till April, I would imagine, would be the earliest. And those TIF funds wouldn't be needed until sometime in the 22-23 fiscal year. We're setting out about $1.3 million is what we have available, which includes the CAT grant and the TIF money that you've already committed to. One of the things that we're going to do if we do let the bids is we're going to have, I guess the architects like to call it value engineering. We'll have some alternates in there that potentially would save us some money, going with possibly an asphalt roof versus steel. We're discussing the geothermal versus forced air. We can save some money there if we go with forced air furnaces. The elevator, potentially delaying the installation of the elevator, putting in the elevator shaft, or possibly not finishing the lower level. That might be another alternate that could save some pretty significant money, so that we maybe have that option if we get these bids and they're still a little high, we can make some changes, have some alternates built
Just
in.
to get the ball rolling.
So that we can, and then with the idea of finishing those things off, as soon as the funds were.
Will you lose any of the fundings by not fulfilling some of those?
The Economic Development Authority said that before we do anything, commit to any changes, we have to talk to them. So I actually emailed them yesterday, the project coordinator, and I said, here's the scenario. I said, nothing has been decided, but I said, if we were to go forward in December and let the bids, we would like to know, if it's possible, if we make those use an alternate, if that's going to impact the CAT grant. I don't think the roof, like changing from steel to asphalt, probably wouldn't. If we deleted the elevator, I know they really pushed for the elevator to begin with when we got our grant approved. That was one of the things that they were kind of sticklers about, which was fine. as long as maybe we're not gonna delete something, we're just gonna delay it, potentially they would go with it. But if we can find out ahead of time, then that would give us, the information that we need to whether we're gonna include that as an alternate or not. So, yeah, so I don't know, we wouldn't commit to any of those changes without knowing that they can approve the change and we still keep our $250,000 cap grant. So. And I asked our architect, I talked to him again this morning, we've been kind of touching bases every couple times a month, and I asked him how projects are going. He said they have a number of school projects that are using HVAC, upgrading their HVAC systems, and he said they're actually able to lock in on a state bid price. They can get that before the bids are actually let. So I said, is that something that's available to all public entities? And he goes, he didn't know, but he knew the schools were using it. And he said it doesn't save them a lot of money, but it guarantees that the material, the equipment is there. Because that's one of the things right now is you can order something today, but you might not get it till 2 or 3 times longer than it normally would take down the road. But so he said that for like now, if we were to let bids in December, those contractors then can start getting those materials ordered at a set price, and hopefully when they're needed, they're going to be available. But he said HVAC, lighting. I don't know if you're hearing what you're hearing, but
In the past, I was hearing
yeah.
quite a bit about.
One of my board members is an electrician. He said availability is one of the things that they're running into. They can order it, it's just going to take longer to get it.
So what, have you and your board discussed what the advantages would be to waiting too? Or
Yeah,
just-
they talked about briefly yesterday. I think the kind of consensus was, there is a time frame for our CAT grant. Can't tell you offhand what the deadline is for us to. We have actually expended some funds, so we've met the first requirement. I think the consensus was that it didn't favor us to wait longer to get the project going versus getting it going now and
As a contractor, I can guarantee it's not gonna go down from what it is now.
somebody say they thought a couple of years, some of these things could stay like they are.
That's what I've been hearing from lumber
Yeah,
mills and stuff.
yeah. I can't remember, somebody told me that this past week, they had heard it several years. I know it was a local contractor here in town. I'm not asking you to make the decision at this moment, but I just my board would like you to maybe consider it, and we are kind of, like I said, kind of under the gun time-wise, because our architects will need some time to put things together if you would consider going that route. And again, we're always gonna be open to the idea of changing the project to meet the budget, as long as it fits in with our existing grant that we receive, like with the CAT grant, so we wouldn't lose that, but, so that's kind of where, I don't know if you have any other questions on
So
that.
are there all sorts of additional architect fees now with redoing that?
It'll cost us about $5,000 to bid it, that's what it did the last time approximately. And he said unless we have some major changes, and I know there'll be a few, not major changes, but I know the lighting package came in way high, and the electricians that I talked to said that we can save some money there just by using a different quality of light that will still work for us and save in the tens of thousands of dollars. So things like that, we're going to go through it again and make sure that we're using materials that are good quality but not over the top type of.
So what's the investment that you have right now with everything invested in the design and the
It's
architects?
about $240,000. I believe the architects and engineering was about $125. We did site prep. We've got power to the site right up to the boundary of the property. The septic is in. Well engineering is done.
The well's not done though.
No, we held off on that. And there was some question early on if the geothermal wells and our drinking water well, there was some confusion as to the separation distance, and we got that clarified. But we held off on the well anyway, so.
So the geothermal you're looking at is a pump and dump, or is it a
Wells.
circulating?
There's a wells. I think there's 9 wells there and go from, I don't know if you've been up on the site, but it'll go basically through our parking lot towards the highway, kind of northwest to southeast. Yeah, we looked at the loop system, and the folks over at Cresco that did some of the work on that said that the soil types wasn't your advantage to do that, so. And we also have looked at the alternate, which was forced air furnaces, but there's some savings there. But some of the other counties that have, some counties that have put up new nature centers have gone away from geo, and then others have had it and they're happy with it. And so we're kind of hearing mixed stories, but I think if we can, that's the plan, to go geo. We also were going to have the building set up for solar. The chases are going to be put in, and that's another thing. We may delete the chases, put the solar on the ground, and there's some savings there as well. So we need a smaller breaker and those kind of breaker panel, that kind of stuff. But so there's a number of things that we're going to be looking at here as far as considering them for alternates.
So if you were thinking about an asphalt roof over a metal roof, then for sure you'd want to put the solar on the ground.
Yeah, the advantage that one of the local electricians explained to me was if you put the solar on the ground, you can get by with a smaller electrical panel, which is quite a bit of savings. And then the way the utility company hooks into it and meters it is somewhat different, and I can't explain it all to you right now, but
Is it Alliance there?
no, that's Heartland.
It's Heartland?
Yeah, Alliant is to the north of us. Yeah, Heartland put in the power. They brought it up the road a couple thousand feet from the nearest neighbor there.
Well, is this something that we want to discuss further with possible actioning, or how do you want to handle it? Because it's a discussion only thing today.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think we need more information. I think we need some numbers as far as if you're gonna make those changes. How much can you give up without?
Yeah, and we obviously don't want to lose the CAT grant. And we know that after the original bids were let, we got together with the contractor that had the low bid, and the architect proposed some of those changes I mentioned, the not finishing the lower level, some things with electrical, some concrete work, and they were able to come up with it seems to me it was about $300,000 worth of reductions, but we didn't find out at that time would we lose the CAT grant potentially, so that was something that we hadn't. But at that time, the board decided it wasn't enough, the savings to continue to go forward because we didn't have that extra money that we would have needed, so. And that's when things were still just going up, like a rocket as far as prices, and it didn't seem like it had slowed down enough during this past year to.
The tricky part of it is you're still fundraising, and it's almost like we'd like, if we wanted to fulfill the project, it'd be nice to know how much fundraising is available yet.
Well, what's made it kind of hard is not having our final number.
Right.
If we get that number, let's say we get it in December, we've got the rest of the winter then too, for the next 4 months, 5 months to continue to fundraise.
Then you can go out
You
and
can-
say, it's gonna happen,
This is-
but we need this.
This is what we need to close the deal, yeah, this is how much we need, that's what's been, we haven't been as active in the fundraising side, or the foundation hasn't, on the fundraising side of things, because we didn't have that number. And, so, yeah,
One of the
The other
issues,
thing about TIF is debt. So if we're gonna do TIF, you have to have things, you have to have debt. So I don't know how you would do the TIF right now, because there's no money spent, so you can't do you know what I'm saying?
don't
We would
you,
budget it for next year.
But if there's nothing spent, you can't have TIF because there's no debt. So
So you prepay materials and that sort of thing, or how would you?
well, you can't prepay materials with county because you can't
Yeah.
do that. So I don't understand, like, why wouldn't we use the American Rescue Plan money versus doing the TIF?
Because, well, in that meeting, we were talking about some of those projects, well, say we wanted to do something at the public health to expand that, or find a different facility. That's gonna cost some money too,
Yeah,
and can we use TIF for that?
I don't know.
I think there's some limitations on TIF. for
There
certain
is,
projects.
like I said,
Is it something we wanna have a discussion with our bond council?
I just know that you can't use TIF without debt. And so, you know, you've got,
I think it's worth talking about, Josh.
I mean, we can definitely talk to Bob. I just,
And we can look at 3 projects that we're looking at and see, you know, what fits where, whether it's American Rescue Plan or the TIF. I think we need to know more about that before we can make these decisions.
well, one of the things I'm cautious about is that, originally when this project was proposed, it was, not gonna use any county money, any tax dollars. And I've already been threatened once over partially, I had a guy get really mad at me over, giving the money we've already given, and then he's gravel road, threatened to knock me on my blanket keister. But,
Well, I just wonder if your fundraising efforts going forward would almost be more limited or to a detriment almost if you got additional funds. Are people gonna
Yeah.
say,
That's the.
well,
balance.
I mentioned, there's gonna be furnishing the building, getting that, and then displays, depends on what some of the counties, put in professional displays. I mean, there's never, it seemed like any shortage of need.
so
And
will
no-
your contributors though, who've already contributed and are expecting a certain product in the end,
will they contribute again?
will they, yeah?
Well, I think, we did a direct mailing back several years ago, and we had a really good response, percentage-wise. But there's a lot of people that that I think will contribute, especially if they know where we're kind of ending, when this thing's gonna end. And I think right now, it's just been a little harder. We were looking at, well over a year ago, we would have started this originally. And they'll, once we let the bids, then we're gonna know where we're at, if we're anywhere close. I talked to the architect again today, and he thinks that we should be pretty close, but, we thought that before too, and things were kind of blown out of the water.
So that's, the only cost to that is gonna be $5,000?
Yes,
So that's
that's,
it.
yeah.
Taking that chance.
Yes.
And then we're gonna have that short window of accepting or denying.
And what is that window?
I mean, he's talking about as middle of a week.
Because the guaranteed prices
Yeah.
right now is
Right.
almost
And
impossible.
initially, we had a 45-day. Looking back now, we didn't know this then, but if you bid that today, knowing that they have 45 days and things were going, we didn't know how crazy things were getting until later, but they had to really probably pad their bid to cover themselves,
Not knowing
not knowing for sure what the
where
price was
or
going to
if
be.
they could get the materials.
Yeah, and I know some of the contractors I talked to had said, after the fact, they said, we call in like for electrical, and they tell us the bid's good today, not tomorrow. So those kind of,
Oh, and I've heard stories with school projects where, and it's usually steel products they're talking about, where one contractor in the area had gotten solid quotes, started doing the project, and the supplier came back and said, sorry, you're not gonna get it for that. They had
wouldn't even honor.
documentation there, but it doesn't matter when it comes to COVID times. They can falter on it.
My defense for us giving some money that we already gave was the fact that you did a pretty good job of fundraising in a relatively economically depressed time for the ag economy. And if you were to do further fundraising, the economic outlook for ag right now is a little better. Whether there would be some more people that would be more apt to.
I think there will be, and I think that we will definitely get that, our foundation will definitely get active again, and, once we get to where I think they're just kind of waiting again too to see where what our number is. Harrison County, and Carla heard this one down at ISAC this summer, Harrison County bid their project in June, about a $3.5 million project. It went over, the budget was over, and they did some value-added engineering, and they cut the price. But their board of supervisors had pledged to commit $1 million to their project. But I asked him afterwards, I said, what made you think June of this past year was a good time? And he said, well, we had some people on our board that said, let's do it, we'll find money, and they did. But it just seemed like middle of the summer was probably, I wouldn't have thought that would be a good time for it. And they did come in over budget, but they were able to trim it back to meet their budget. And, that's when they started digging shortly after ISAC on that project. So, and
Well,
there's-
one area I would, in my opinion, is to not just delay would be better, would be the elevator project. I think that needs to be, the infrastructure needs to be there for the capability.
Yeah, and then when that particular county was putting in the elevator shaft, if I remember right, and but they weren't finishing their lower level. That was their original plan, not to finish their lower level, but they left the elevator out, which saved them about $100,000. In that particular, that's about where ours is running in that $100,000 range.
I don't know if we answered your question.
Well, at least having a conversation about it, and I mean, we're more than happy to talk about it some more, and hopefully we can maybe move it forward this fall yet, whether it's TIF or the ARPA money. Either way, obviously works for this project, but if you guys can figure out that it does work, where does TIF funds go?
I mean, time-wise, the ARPA money's quicker.
Yeah, we know that type of project is eligible for ARPA funds, so that would be the other thing. You could, if you pledge that amount of money and contingent upon the project coming in, in that price range, let's say, where it needs to be, or we make some adjustments.
So what is the amount of money? If you are at
We're talking about right about $2 million. Yeah. So,
Overall.
right, but you've raised 1.3.
we've actually raised 1.496, I think it is. Just under 1.5 we've raised, and then we've expended that about 230, 240. So we've got about just right around, just under 1.3 million that were available, including the CAT grant.
So the 2 million includes what you've already spent?
No.
Oh, so it's gonna be 2.2 something?
Yeah, I mean, if you're figuring in, yeah. The original, last bid was 1.935. That was the low bid, 1.935. And that was before we had discussed any of the more significant alternate type work.
So that's without major changes.
The 1.935, that was as we had spec'd it, that was with everything that we wanted, I shouldn't say everything, but that was,
That was best case scenario for.
yeah, that's what we were hoping for. That would have given us the geothermal and everything was finished the way we wanted it, basically. There were a few alternates like in-floor heat and things like that.
So you're wishing for 600,000. Ish.
Yeah.
He's wishing for
700.
lower bids.
Yeah,
Well, we all
yeah,
are
that's
wishing for
really
that.
what we're wishing for.
I'm just trying to put numbers. on it,
700,
so-
700 is kind of what we talked about yesterday at our board meeting.
Okay,
We're at about 1.3.
It's such a variable right now.
Yeah, I
It
don't,
could come down quite a bit, or it may just, everybody's squeamish on locking something in.
yeah. And I asked the architect this morning as far as the contractors being busy, and he said, some of them are still real busy and others are looking around for some projects, kind of. He said it's kind of a mixed bag, which,
well, I think we need more information.
I didn't know if there was a way to somehow guarantee it was commit ARPA money, but then change to something else if it fits in better.
That work?
I suppose there's nothing about the ARPA funds that say you can't maybe be like contingent upon. you know.
Right.
The ARPA
The only
money's-
thing is that eventually that we have to report what we're gonna do with that ARPA money and,
When
You have until 2024, December of
And
20,
you,
for reporting, and then 26 of spending, I think.
and if
Yeah.
we commit, you know, at that point, if we have plenty of time, because your project's gonna be up and going.
Yeah.
The
We
ARPA
will
money,
then determine whether we're gonna do it this way or this way too.
the ARPA money is a little more of an easy sell because it didn't come directly from property taxes.
Right.
I mean, are we
No,
all
but
paying that
there's-
money anyway, indirectly? Yes.
But there's a lot of people who have definite ideas on how that ARPA money should benefit the county.
And we're still juggling all that.
Right. With EMS and public health and
Lots of good projects.
lots of good
Yeah,
projects.
you can't argue against those.
Absolutely.
The public health one is one that's something that's needed to be done anyway, and it'd be a somewhat of an easier sell, property tax wise, but, yeah, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other right now, which,
EMS, that's still a long ways from figuring out what we can do there,
yeah.
even though we're meeting monthly. Still got a long ways to
There's a
go.
lot of ifs there, isn't there?
And if we commit money there to say a new facility or converting a facility or something into equipment, then after that, then we have a commitment of salaries and benefits and stuff we have to ensure. So that's kind of a jumping off point.
I have not talked to anyone that doesn't want an ambulance service, so it's,
Right.
I have had a few people say that the nature center isn't something that we really need, which I'm in favor of the project, I mean, I think it's a good idea.
That's actually the feedback that I've been getting as well, you know, so we have to walk a little bit of a careful line there, you know. Everyone seems to be in favor of using the rescue money for health direct health. You know, I know the nature center is healthy, you know.
Yeah, and
Well,
it means
absolutely.
the mitigation
And I haven't
avoiding
talked, I haven't even really mentioned the ARPA money for the ambulance services and stuff is, I haven't talked to anybody that's against using our tax dollars to make sure that we have
For
an
ambulance.
I think that's gonna be in the ongoing expenses.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's something, I told them, I says it's gonna be at least $50 to $70 a person in the county if we're gonna provide this. And, which it'd be fun to know how many actual tax-paying entities there are in the county. I know what the population of the county is, but not everybody pays.
Do we know the actual population?
10,000.
250.
250 is what I remember.
But
Yeah.
is that gonna change after Fort City gets theirs changed? 'Cause I heard they were challenging their number, that it was actually, it went up.
I don't know, I haven't seen any of the census numbers yet.
And we can challenge our numbers if we feel like it was not accurate.
How would they not be accurate, though?
Well, if not enough people return their census.
Well, the census
And
was
with
really
COVID,
hard to take this year
You have the
because
ability right now to challenge those numbers. And Fort City, I guess, which is good, I mean, if it helps get their number up, it gets our number up, and
No. You just think that it would be, yeah, I guess if they didn't return it.
there was a lot of that, bad times.
yeah, well, I
Nobody
think
wanted to touch anybody.
they pulled
Well, the
a lot
original
of
census,
census workers, you know, off. the
then they give you the
roads.
extracurricular census afterwards.
Well, yeah, I don't know where we're at.
Well, I'm waiting to hear from, I'm gonna try the economic development folks again too, just ask them about our scenario here this week again. I should hear something back one way or the other, whether they don't know or they can't answer it or something like that, but.
And who's on the foundation and how often
Foundation board?
do you meet?
They try to meet at least quarterly. There's times when we were meeting almost monthly. Now it's slowed down, especially with COVID. We did some Zoom meetings. Brad Huntington is the chairman.
I wonder if it might be helpful for you to,
Well, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago. And we were kind of talking about the scenario. I don't know if we really talked about TIF much, but we did talk about the ARPA money, and I kind of told them where the county was at with that as far as early in the conversation part of it. But, yeah, they've kind of been the same way as far as they'd like to know what the number is so that we can. And my board's they're ready to spend the $5,000 to get the bid package put together, but we obviously wouldn't be able to make a decision until we know that the funds are there one way or the other. If we're close, if we've got a gap to fill and we've got 5 months to do it, I think I'm just not speaking for them, but I think my board would be a lot more likely to go forward and really go after the extra funds. Let's say we have a couple $100,000 we have to raise, and I think there's people out there that would consider it.
I think the $5,000 is well spent in, finding out what's that number gonna be this
Yeah.
time around.
But we're just gonna have such a short period of
I agree,
time.
it's just that you
We
have to have a plan in place with
Yeah.
that short window there.
I
even
guess
if,
the other thing is if we're gonna use TIF funds, I mean, we've already agreed to use some TIF funds anyway.
Mhm.
So if we're gonna use TIF funds anyway, and we're gonna go through the process of doing it,
Just we'll do it a little bigger, is that what you're saying?
and how does that work with the original 145 then, as far as the debt side of it?
We haven't done the urban renewal
no,
plan yet, so
no.
it's gonna be all one process. We
So
can just
debt,
change the
like
number.
the TIF, if you're gonna have TIF, you have to have the debt. So in order to, like you said, if you've got this $1.3 million sitting there, you've gotta spend that, and then
Okay, so the end of it then would be filled with
the TIF,
use for the tip, okay.
yeah.
Like our roof project, we're paying the roof project now, we're borrowing the money.
We're borrowing the money from the general fund,
Mhm.
and then we pay it back next year with the TIF money.
And that, yeah, we would, okay.
Created our own debt.
We created our own debt.
And we would have,
And at least at that point, you can say, well, we didn't raise taxes to do it, other than maybe a little interest or something incurred.
and we would have, we have 1.3 now, so if you took out the TIF money, there's 1.15 that's, we would spend. The CAT grant's based on reimbursements, 20% reimbursement approximately, every dollar, they get 20 cents back.
We won't have to increase the levy to.
Right.
To pay for it, but we could have decreased the levy if we had that money in.
But how soon are you gonna be able to decrease the levy? Because you can only use TIP for certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, we can pay off debt, for the, our overall bond. But it takes a while to show.
Yeah, no, there's.
It's not gonna be immediate.
No, it's just it all ends sooner.
Yeah, it's just the big unknown, that's the one that's, we won't know until we got the bids.
Well, I guess you know kind of where we don't sit or do sit.
Well, like I said, I'll check with the CAT people, the economic development people, and find out how much flexibility we have. And I mean, that helps us from the standpoint of being able to, make some changes if it comes over where we need to be. If it doesn't, then we're okay as far as that goes. But, okay.
I'd still like to see if we can get Bob Johnston on a conference with us to talk about possibilities of our TIF monies and what uses we could use it for.
Okay.
We can line that up sometime.
Yeah, and if that works out for whenever the next week or so, I'll definitely come back in and be doing, seeing what I can figure out on our end.
It won't be just this project we're talking.
Sure.
The other projects too, then we can kind of juggle where the money comes from for what project or something.
Fair enough.
It might be, John Danos.
Okay,
I don't think Bob's been,
doing well.
yeah.
Okay. All right,
Very good. Thanks for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Robert?
Talk to you later, thanks.
Scott wasn't here, was that it?
no, he was out. So all we got is payroll left.
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll claims.
I'll second that.
Got a motion from Jesville and a second from Smith to approve the payroll claims. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. We stand adjourned.